What's up, guys? Welcome back to the NextGen Sales Leader Podcast. I'm here with Stuart Brent, who is the founder of SaasyDB. Welcome to the podcast, Stuart.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I want to dive deep into the story of how you got to SaasyDB, because I know that you're a multi-time entrepreneur. You've obviously been through the ringer. You've gone through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and you know how hard it is to launch and scale companies. So would love to just start with, how did you get into entrepreneurship, and what has your journey been like?
I hustled a little bit in high school and had like little side gigs, but really I fell into entrepreneurship. Like in college, I thought about what business could I start afterwards. And I thought about, this was before food trucks were like the trend, but I thought about having my own food truck, having a bicycle shop and whatnot. And I graduated college and I had a hobby of making t-shirts. I wanted to make t-shirts for my own band at the time. So my roommate taught me how to print t-shirts, and I finished college. I had 2 summer jobs. I thought one of them would turn into a full-time job. Neither of them did. And I said, I must print t-shirts for a living. And people said, you can't make a living doing that. And I ignored them and I started a business. I started screen printing out of my laundry room, and I expanded into the basement instead, because the basement room was much bigger in this row home in West Philly. And then got a shop, got an employee, got serious equipment, got recognized for the techniques I was doing, started a blog. And at that time, a lot of people were very secretive about screen printing techniques, but I just, instead of being secretive, I just wrote about everything, and that got me some recognition. And that was my first business. And that one's still running to this day. I don't run it myself. My business partner runs it. I do some marketing, but that was like my first real entrepreneur endeavor.
That's awesome. West Philly, man.
Yes.
Where in West Philly were you? Because was it the hood, or was it like the good parts of West Philly? I don't know. Are there good parts of West Philly?
Sure. There's nice parts, but the nice parts aren't far from the hood. So that was a nice part, close to University of Pennsylvania, relatively 43rd and Pine, if anybody listening knows West Philly. But it was rougher back then than I think it is now, but it was cool. Yeah. It was like one of those old row homes, like probably 100 years old, but 6 bedrooms, 3-story row home with a basement. We would have shows in the basement. So before my screen printing shop, when it was just in the laundry room, we'd be having shows in the basement on Fridays and Saturdays. So it was a crazy time of life.
That's awesome. Yeah. I grew up, as you know, in Philly, went to Wissahickon High School, and my dad was actually a federal prosecutor who worked in downtown Philly. So I'd constantly take the train, SEPTA, back and forth we were in Dresher, Pennsylvania, which is northwest of the city. And we would take a train in from the age of like 4 all the way up to, with my dad, all the way up till, when I graduated college. So I was a Philly boy through and through, Eagles fan. And the only time I actually ended up in West Philly was either on school trips to the zoo, the Philadelphia Zoo, which is, right on the edge of West Philly. Also, there was one time where I was like 15 years old and I was trying to get my muffler changed out, because I those stupid fart cannons that are really loud.
Make it sound good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was such a typical, like, they call them ricers, ricer kind of kid who was like, soup up I had some stupid Mazda 626 and I spray painted the wheels black, and I wanted this really loud fart can, which ended up getting me pulled over so much as a kid. All the police knew I was coming from like 3 miles away. But I remember there was a cold air intake that I got offline, but I didn't know how to install it.
Yeah.
And so I met some random dude from West Philly, and he's like, come down to my house in West Philly. I was like, I'll do it for $400. And me not knowing anything about anything, I went down to West Philly, and it was in the middle of the hood. And I remember we were parked there, and this one guy like walked past the car and like looked in the car, and like there's this like little like 16-year-old white boy, like is not supposed to be in that part of the hood, and this guy is just like, he does a double take, takes 2 steps, does another double take, and then I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't be here, because I was like the only person that looked like me in like 20 miles, but we ended up getting it done. And the only other time in West Philly I was there, I actually had a cop pull me over. And no, seriously, in that vehicle, and he ended up pulling a gun out. This is the craziest thing. Pulled a gun out because he said I ran past him. I didn't see the guy. It was under a tunnel. And he pulled a gun out and he put it to the windshield and said, I'm going to pop you. This was like my 16, 17, 18-year-old time period in
The
Philadelphia.
cop said that?
Yeah, it was the craziest thing. I was taking my girlfriend to the bus station in downtown, and I was going through West Philly, and I went under a tunnel, and there was a bike cop. And I couldn't, it was in those tunnels, like if there's sun coming through from the other angle, you can only see a silhouette. And in West Philly, you don't stop. It's not like you're stopping when somebody's waving in the street.
You keep going
and
for
so
sure.
you keep going. And so I just kept going, and I got stopped at the next stoplight. And I looked in my left-hand mirror, and this cop came running out or biking up, jumps off his bike, draws his gun, and put it right to the windshield and said, I'm going to pop you. He said we were running from him, and I was like, I didn't even see you. He's like, I was the guy in the middle of the tunnel. I'm like, well, you're in the middle of the tunnel of West Philly. Like, why am I going to stop? So that was a whole thing. But yeah, probably too deep for a podcast on sales and marketing, but that's my experience with West
Did
Philly.
you get any charges from that, or did you get it taken in or anything?
So it was crazy. So like I didn't get charges. I was like, I pulled the only card I had as a, whatever, how old I was, a teenager. And I said, like, my dad's a federal prosecutor. He knows the chief of police or something stupid like that. And that got them to ease off a little bit because they realized I was a little out of my depth. They realized I wasn't some crazy criminal. The car didn't make it seem that way. But what happened was they ended up giving me like some stupid ticket for tint and, like sound violation for the fart can, which was pretty typical back when I was a teenager. But what was crazy is the way they had drawn the weapons and like dragging me out of the car and everything. It was all illegal. I mean, I really didn't do anything wrong. And so there was 3 cameras pointed down at that section of the intersection. And my dad did talk to the chief police buddy, and we went to internal investigations to like file a complaint against the police officer. And all of those tapes went missing. All of them.
They
Internal
dubbed them
investigations. Oh yeah, they just deleted them. And like three of them disappeared. So yeah, Philadelphia is a whole part of my life. I live in Las Vegas now, but that was close as I can get to you on West Philadelphia.
Yeah. I grew up here in Nashville, and I feel like I grew up in Nashville, but became an adult in Philly. I got hardened in Philadelphia, and like I have tons of crazy stories and some police run-ins when I was not up to something like that. The police there are nuts, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I think they have to be honest. Like, I mean,
Because
people
everybody
that
else is
don't know
nuts.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, my dad, because he oversaw the firearms division in terms of like violent crime for the federal prosecutor's office, he was always had like this like basic live map of shootings in Philadelphia. And so he would get like these crazy alerts every 10 minutes, anytime a shooting would happen. And it was like every 10 minutes. And so you look at a map and it was just like lit up, especially in North Philadelphia and West Philadelphia, especially this is like in the 90s, extremely dangerous city. There are chop shops and all these kind of organized crime in Philadelphia at the time. And so people don't realize how dangerous certain parts of Philadelphia were. And the reason I referenced me being in the wrong spot, it's a little different today, but if you were in the wrong spot, even block to block, it was potentially life-threatening.
Yeah, you can feel it too when you get into the wrong place.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the cops have to kind of be a little gangster, They gotta like fight fire with fire sometimes. And that's, I think, where the culture comes from. And Philadelphia, everyone knows from just sports fans that Philly people are a little more intense,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What's your best Philly story?
I don't know. It was just, I don't know, there's a lot, but talking about the cops, so I had my print shop in West Philly, and I walked to the bank one day, and I was walking back to my shop, and I jaywalked, but everybody jaywalks there. It's no big deal. All the time you do that. But this cop was looking at me really hard. And I'm like, am I going to get busted for jaywalking after jaywalking 10,000 times? And he gets out of his car and says, put your hands on the fence. So I'm up against the fence, and he's frisking me, and his partner's out, and more cops come. And there's probably like 6 cop cars come. And I'm like, what is going on? And you're a suspect for a robbery. I was like, I'm not a robber. What do you think I robbed? And somebody had hit the Verizon store in that neighborhood, and I matched the description as a blonde white guy for whatever reason. So they put me in the back of the wagon, and I'm not cuffed, but I'm like definitely being detained. It's not pleasant. And somebody comes to look at me, and they're like, that's not the guy. So they let me go. But also I forgot to mention on the walk back from the bank, there was a lady, just her car was just rolling slowly through a major intersection, just like creeping along, blowing the light. A bus had to avoid her. And then she wakes up, pulls over, and I talk to her, and I'm knocking on her window, and she's just completely dazed. I'm like, what is going on with you? And she said that she'd been to the doctor and they gave her some medication for something, and it was making her so tired. And I was like, you should just not be driving. So it's like that craziness of talking to that lady that was just like driving clearly impaired. And then, which is enough of it, like a weird event. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like detained by the police as a robbery suspect. And all that time, like I left my employee working at the screen print shop, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the bank. I'll be right back. So I'm gone for quite a while. And he's like, where you been? I'm like, oh, I got to think about the police. I talked to this lady that was like obviously messed up driving around. And it was just another day.
Mm-hmm.
And my roommates, everybody come home and compare different stories. Like one of my favorite roommates came home and he was like, oh, I just got in a fist fight with an ambulance driver. And it was just like stuff like that would be normal. Like he got into an argument. He's riding his bike home. The ambulance driver was annoyed with him. And they said words, and the ambulance driver got out and he punched him in the face and rode home. And you tell that story, and we hung out on the porch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like people are just a different breed. But it's interesting because coming back to like entrepreneurship and just business is that like there's just real lessons that just going into like the world and dealing with tough people. I think that really set me up to be an entrepreneur, is because like the truth is it's not all clean and it's not all easy, and you're going to run into weird situations as an entrepreneur. And I think just emotionally being able to handle craziness and then being able to just keep going, be like, it's just another normal day, just whatever it is. That is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So,
Just shake
this
off the
actually does
stress.
relate.
Just shake off the weirdness. And also, I was so like green behind the ears when I moved to Philly. I was going to college. I never had any trouble here in Nashville. Went to a private school, and like recognizing scams, recognizing people that are trying to get over on you, recognizing like who to trust. I didn't know any of that. But then over the years, you get ripped off. Maybe you get bitter, you get paranoid, but then you can carry that into business too. So you can recognize like good deals, bad deals, trustworthy people, not so legit people and stuff. So it does prepare you for the business world in a way.
It is something that even the last couple of years, it took me a long time to read people in business. And I think it's a very underspoken about skill set, which is just discernment and judgment in reading people. Because at the end of the day, what is business? It's exchanging goods or services for some type of cash, or maybe a trade if you want to do that, but mostly cash with people. And you're hiring people, you're working with people, you have business partners, you have vendors, you have your clients, but ultimately it's just human beings. And human beings, we lie, we steal, we cheat, we deceive, but we also have all the good things that we have. But it doesn't just because we're in business go away. And I can say that in my own experience, especially with business partners, I mean, it's wild when people have either influence or they have some type of advantage, what people will do if they don't have good core values. So for me, in my own particular life, I've gotten extremely good at seeing between the weeds, reading the tea leaves, so to speak. And I now have a very robust hiring process that I follow. I have this very clear set of values. So I'm curious, how is that those experiences translated into the way that you're doing business now?
I guess just being hesitant to get involved with people almost, and just trying to almost run like background checks on people that might approach me about a partnership or whatever, and asking people I know who might know them, what's this person like? I had my first like serious inquiry into an acquisition for SaasyDB already, and it was like an acqui-hire. But I recognized that when the guy who was talking to me, I recognized one of his previous companies. So like a friend of mine here works for him. So I like asked through the grapevine, what is this guy really? And I got nothing but negative remarks back. And I didn't want to sell and do an acqui-hire anyway, but just knowing that I want no involvement. So it's, I don't know, the paranoia and lack of trust kind of carries over from Philadelphia into the business world, but I think in a good way, because you should be cautious to get involved with people and cautious to hire
No doubt. When in my younger years, I just didn't know better, especially when I was like, I was in nonprofits and politics up until the age of 24 and did my first for-profit business at the age of 24, 25. I just had no clue when I was getting started. I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have anybody to say, hey, you probably should do this the right way. And contracts were just like, oh, sign on the dotted line, sure. Didn't read any of the fine print. And the first three businesses I was involved with where I was a minority business owner, 5%, 10%, that kind of stuff. I got absolutely just taken to the bank because I trusted people and I didn't understand law and I didn't understand people's interest in taking advantage. I was so naive. I just thought, people would be altruistic and kind and take care of you and have empathy. And it just turns out that, when money gets involved, especially millions of dollars, it doesn't matter if somebody seems like they're your best friend and you've known each other for 2 to 3 years. It can very quickly go south on you if you don't have a good contract. And yeah. Speaking of the background check though, this happened actually only a few months ago. We hired a sales rep. I'm not going to say where, but I typically actually don't do background checks, and that's probably a bad idea. But I have this extremely robust process on hiring. So it's not an excuse. I should do background checks. But the point is this one guy passed all of my tests, did very well. And then we started working together. And one thing I can say to anybody listening is people interview great. Good people, or even bad people that are just good at bullshitting, can interview so well. And so for me, I just think of it as like there's the initial interview, and then there is like the probationary period for me, which is like, frankly, a year. But it's especially true in the first 3 days and the first 2 weeks. And so this guy starts and he becomes kind of strange, and he tries to get me to pay him through an LLC. The LLC is a bakery. And I'm like, why do you want me to pay you through a bakery? And so I just asked that question. I'm like, what is this LLC and why am I paying it? He's like, and he basically says, why? He ignores me for 2 to 3 messages and then finally says, why does it matter? And I'm like, well, because I'm about to sign it and be entered into an agreement with a legal entity and I need to know who it is and I need to know who is involved with it. And not to mention, your name isn't anywhere that I can see on any of the records that I'm looking at. And it's a bakery. I'm hiring you for a sales position. So he got very upset. And I just decided from that experience, I was like, I can't work with this guy. And so I decided to Google his name after the fact. I'm like, this is just like, it goes to show that it doesn't matter how many interviews you've done, you can still get it wrong. I Google his name. I don't know if it's this guy, but what it came up with was in 1995, there was a cocaine case where this guy apparently had been arrested for intent to distribute. But when they went to his house on a warrant, this is all in this court record. I don't know why. Like, I never thought this podcast would dovetail so much into crime and like police. But this guy ended up, they found in the house bats, knives, guns, duffel bags, like gloves, masks, and apparently what it turns out, and again, I don't know if this is the guy, but it turns out whoever this guy was in the report, who was the same exact name, same middle initial, same location, had this report that basically said he was one of the main enforcers for the mafia in the region. And I'm just like, did I really just hire and fire one of the main enforcers from the mid-90s for the mafia? And I'm just like, aye. So goes to show is check your background checks, kid.
Yeah, but I wonder how good an ex-enforcer would have been at sales.
Oh my God.
Not really forcing sales, but just talking people into it, like in a legitimate way. Like he might have been like a fantastic closer for it.
Oh, he probably was. I mean, I wonder that to this day, and this was like 4 months ago, I don't know. But he seemed great. I mean, he seemed like he was great at sales. The issue was, I don't know, like when I work with people, I want to feel comfortable around them. And I also want to feel like I can trust them implicitly. Yes. And so when there's like weird stuff like that comes up, not the whole like cocaine thing that I found on Google.
But
that's
just
obvious.
Like the LLC, pay me through an LLC is a red flag. And it's like those red flags, I feel like with experience, you learn you can't ignore those. You can't skim over those. You have to, and getting rid of somebody so quickly, like early on, is so much cleaner and easier than being like, and been involved longer. Cause you get like, emotionally attached with coworkers and employees too, which makes it harder. Like when I had the screen printing shop, I was in the shop all day long with this one guy, and he was I don't know, a knucklehead basically, but he was like, we were bros because we hung out together all day and we talked about everything, but he was also my employee. And there were times like I should have fired him because he was screwing up so much, but we were close, so I couldn't. So I should have just never hired him. Like he came to me and he was like, I wanted to learn how to screen print. I said, I can either charge you can be an intern and you work for free and I'll teach you some stuff. And like that worked out well enough that I hired him and paid him, but I shouldn't have. But I was already like emotionally invested in him because we were buddies, but also working together and that. But anyway, yeah, getting rid of your mafia guy quickly because of that red flag. And that's the key, is just to let people go quick. Hire slow and fire fast is so true.
Yeah. And just triple down on that, which is like hire so exceptionally slow. I have a whole podcast literally just on hiring. So if anybody wants to check out the podcast on sales hiring, I talk about this deeply, but I have this whole thing where like I will hire 3 people. So I take, let's say 500 candidates and boil it down to say 20. Those 20 get to me. I interview them on a first interview, and then the top 4 or 5, I invite to a 3-day challenge. The 3-day challenge is a paid 3-day engagement full time. And I have a very robust, depending upon the position I am hiring for, a very robust set of training materials they have to go through and learn and then test out of. For example, with the like senior salesperson, I have a very specific pitch methodology, and it has a very particular structure. I give them examples of prior pitches and I have them learn it. And then by the end of the day, they actually have to give me the pitch with the same materials. And I'm just seeing how they present on camera. So for me, like as a rule of thumb, in terms of the actual job they have to do, I try to put them into a real life scenario at the biggest constraint where they will fail. And for enterprise sales reps, it's typically, do they pitch well? Are they good on presentation? Sales operations, I can test for as a secondary piece, which is a part of my training. The same thing with developers. Like the number one thing I want to test for is, do they actually do well within the environment of my coding stack? So I have very particular tests for certain types of coding languages or DevOps environments. And that works to a degree, but you just can't test for people's idiosyncrasies or the weird shit that they do. And that kind of comes out over a 2 to 4 week period after you start engaging with them. So, but I will say, man, like I've made every stupid mistake you can make on hiring. And I'm not a novice. Like I've hired probably over 500 people in my career. I used to hire door-to-door people and they would churn out at like 80%. Because they were paid $7-8 an hour, and we'd be going door to door in negative 10-degree weather. So obviously most people don't want to do that for that price. So I got used to hiring and firing, but it never gets easy, man. So
yeah, in my experience, I haven't hired a lot of people at all, but co-founders is something I've dealt with more. And you're talking about your 3-day test run. I've realized like if I'm going to do a co-founder, which I don't really want to do anymore, but in the past I've done projects, like a simple project with somebody. Like I knew a guy in town, super sharp, very good coder, like good design skills. And he and I floated the idea of working together on some project. But then he talked about we should do a podcast together, start a podcast. And me trying to do one podcast episode with him showed me like I could never work with him because he would drive me nuts because he was so like perfectionistic on like little stuff and we couldn't get anywhere. And I realized like this guy's awesome, but I could never ever work with him because he would make me instantly regret partnering up. So like doing test runs also for co-founders, I think when possible is good.
yeah, you know, what's his name from Shark Tank? The Mr. Money? What's his name? The money guy? The bald guy?
Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah,
He has this saying of like, even for executives, he says like never ever offer full-time, like straight off the bat positions to executives. Always have a 3-month trial period where it might be full-time, but it's a 3-month consulting engagement. He's like it's so hard, especially with executives, to rip them out of your business because they become a fundamental part of managing that entire department, especially if you're a little bit bigger. So testing is absolutely critical, but then also just kind of seeing red flags to your point about like moving very quickly in terms of getting rid of people. Even the other day, like I hire a lot of people on Upwork for small menial tasks. And one of the things I'm hiring for is actually editing podcasts and doing my YouTube thumbnails and my podcast show notes and my newsletter every week, which takes me about 2 to 3 hours a week, and I don't want to do it. And so we had this guy I'd hired, a ghostwriter, who also has some video editing skills. And the first day he shows up, and he had checked in with me on us having the interview, but at the interview time doesn't show up. Now, I should have just been like, no, like, you didn't show up to the interview time. But what caught me off guard was that he actually had checked in with me 3 times before it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this guy a benefit of the doubt. And so I messaged him and I said, hey, are we still on? And he jumps on him pretty much immediately. And I was like, hey, he's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't think you were showing up because I checked in with you 3 times beforehand and you didn't respond. And I replied, well, I've been busy, but I did confirm the invite. And generally speaking, I don't like to be late, and I don't like to not just no-show or just no-show. And so anyways, it started like that. And there's a great saying of like, the way it starts is the way it will end. And so that same guy gives me his email after I hire him, and I go add him to Slack. And I was going away for a 3-day retreat 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago. I gave him all the materials. I'm an OCD type of documenter of systems and process and training. So I created a whole training guide. I spent several hours creating it for him to edit podcast and newsletter. Sent it to him via Slack, gave him access, added him to all the tools, and I just expected it to be done. So when I went and I came back, I got a message from him on Upwork, and it said, hey, I gave you the wrong email. Just like, oh my God, he didn't do the work. So that's why my newsletter didn't go out last week. And then he gives me a new email, and I put it into Slack. And he, a day later, sends me a message, and he says, Slack is being stupid. I can't get in. Can you just send it to me here on Upwork? And my just response is like, okay, enough. It's like, Slack's not being stupid, and there's so many different ways that could have been approached. But me, like, I love to like give people the benefit of the doubt and be nice to people. But it's so easy to like, one little thing turns into 2 little things, which turns into 3 little things. And then the question becomes, do you as an entrepreneur want to have to put up with that bullshit? And for me, it's like, if there's anything that comes up like that with that, I generally am like, no, it's done. Especially for like somebody being paid $20 an hour, $30 an hour. So anyways,
Did you fire
I
him?
don't know if, oh yeah. I mean, right after the Slack is being stupid comment, which is just a weird way to say it too. It's like, first off, take responsibility. It's like, Slack is not working, probably because you're doing something incorrectly, if that, or something else. But for me, what I'm looking for is my time back. There's I actually have right here, Dan Martell, buy back your time. If I have to tell you how to get into Slack, then I'm going to have to tell you how to do a lot of things, And so as an entrepreneur, I'm not trying to beat this guy up. It's just, I only have so much time in the day, just like you, right? Of course. So do you have any experiences like that, or what are your rules for letting people go?
Really recently, I hired this guy, hit me up on WhatsApp, and he wanted to do BA work of any kind. And I didn't have any work to offload yet. And then I realized like there's some pretty monotonous research on SaaS companies, just finding like the company profile, the LinkedIn profile for the company. And if the API can't find it, I need to find it, but it doesn't need to be me. So eventually this guy who had been asking me to get hired, I was like, I have some work for you. So I gave him, we did the first week, and he got so little done. And I was like, I expect you to do so much more. And I was like, this isn't working out. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. And he was just, I could see like that he bugged out immediately and was so apologetic and was just explaining that he was just being overly meticulous. So I just trained him like, this is how you can find it faster. I don't need you to think hard about this. I need you to just find them quickly. It should only really take 2 minutes each. And since then, he's been great. But like after that first week, and he disappointed me. I was like, we're done. Like I have to move on with my life. I'm not going to your point, I'm not going to help train people more than needed. And of course you train some, but like there's a lot of potential virtual assistants in the world. And if this one specific guy doesn't seem to be pretty ideal right away, I'm just going to move on and let him go, just because it's not worth it. But he corrected course and it was great. But yeah, I was ready to drop him at that. The first issue, basically, just because to what you said earlier, if there's issues initially, you're going to have issues going on. And years ago, I had a VA and she was overseas think she was in Bangladesh, and she wasn't very good and she wasn't very fast. But I knew that I was like her main source of income. So I felt like beholden to help her and a little family. And I felt emotionally involved and like guilty. And I let that go on way too long. And so now I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid as soon as I need to, with letting VAs go.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
also just being explicit. But I helped the guy out, the current VA, because I hit a dry spot and he did all the research I had available. And I was like, I don't need work for you. And he needed it. So I just put in one of our WhatsApp groups, I was like, I have a VA, he's smart. Does anybody need him? And I found him 2 gigs. So I was able to help him and then reduce my emotional, set with him. Because I shouldn't feel like I need to help the guy out. But I still get that way because he's nice. I said I'd give him more work. I didn't have as much, but I got him more work basically, but it wasn't from me. So it all worked out well for both of us. And he's coming back and doing more for me now, more research, and going to help me with some cold email outreach stuff, some inbox.
Yeah, it's nice of you.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy.
I think me too.
But you
man.
can't be too nice. You can't be too nice. You still got to be a dickhead.
Yeah. It's this weird position as an entrepreneur where we have power over people's literal income, and it's like with great power comes great responsibility, kind of cliche, but it's true. And so for me, one of the core things I've had to work on as a business owner, entrepreneur, manager is when to manage up, when to give warnings, when to fire, when to hire, all those questions. And I came up, it was kind of a spin on the Dan Martell idea, which I call PPTP, which is it's both how you create systems of process to manage people and scale your business through playbooks and standard operating procedures, but also how to manage people. And so PPTP is puppy, process, training, people. And the idea is, okay, if you don't know what your process is supposed to be, you cannot hire a VA to go figure that out for you. They're never going to do it. So you got to give them extremely clear, repeatable processes and checklists and expectations, which have to be documented, and there's probably should be a training. And so Dan Martell has something called the 4 C's, which is essentially you record camcorder, and then there's this cadence, which is how often does it occur, and then there's a bunch of steps, which is what has to occur sequentially for it to be complete, and then there's a checklist of all the things that have to be true for it to be complete. So that's how he creates his playbooks. For me, the question was, well, when do you create a playbook? When are you ready to hand it off to somebody? And so that's where I came up with this puppy part of the PPTP, which is like, at first you just got to play. You got to go smell the roses, and you got to go run into the street by mistake. And until you as an entrepreneur or a professional have a sense of the good direction, you shouldn't be putting into a process. The second step is then you put it into a minimum viable process. You refine it yourself until you feel like it's clear. Then you document it and put training and record videos on it. And then finally you give it to somebody and you watch them and you say, does this work? And the whole idea here is that if it doesn't work, you go back and refine the process and the training until somebody without your input can learn it. And then you have a finalized playbook. And so for me, what I do now is if somebody fails at the playbook or doesn't do something right, rather than blaming the person, I typically will look at the process first and I'll say, is there something wrong with the process? If there is, okay, and that's where it broke, then I will give the person a pass and I'll fix the process, retrain, and then try again. If the process is good, but the training is incomplete and it doesn't reflect the process, then obviously the process the training has to get better. And then I still don't kill the person doing it. But where it becomes a people problem is where the process and the training is extremely clear and proven, and you already have proof on that. And then the person also is just still not doing it. And then you can hold them accountable. Where it gets tricky is there are things outside of that paradigm that are just more personal nuances that I think are harder to discern or to have judgment on unless you've been through a scenario. Like the situation of what do you do when a guy just gives you a hard time about payment through an LLC? Until you cover that issue, it's like, how can you know? So I think this is the number one challenge from a people perspective of just knowing when do you get upset with somebody? When do you hold them accountable? How do you hold them accountable? Last thing I'll say on this piece is I remember I used to get so mad at this one guy 10 years ago. And I had one of my mentors say, are you sure he actually knows what to do? I'm like, of course he knows what to do. He's a smart guy. I went and talked to him at lunch. I was like, do you know how to do this? And he's like, I had no clue. And I just realized I never trained the guy, and I was extremely
Yeah.
mad at him. So it's a journey, man. And I think PPTP is a good way to at least get people started on the right path to management.
Yeah. How many employees do you have now?
Depends on who you count. So I have RevyOps, which is the software company for data management. We have 5 developers, we have me, and we have 2 guys that are kind of split between my agency and the software company. The head of GTM, and who's also one of our lead engineers, as well as our head of growth, which is a person named Jesse Cohen. And then on the agency side, it's me, and we have different pods. So we have 2 GTM engineers, or sorry, 1 GTM engineer, 1 we call growth manager per 10 clients. So right now we have 41 clients, so you can do the math. And then we have a bunch of freelancers. So we have somebody who does the social media content. We have some video editor. Who else do we have? We have an accountant, all part-time people that, come in as they need to. And then I have a number of people that I'm a fractional CRO at. So, and I've helped them, Wellsite Navigator, scale up from 4 developers and 1 manager to they now have like 28 developers, and they have, 3-person sales team and 2-person sales support team. They have 1 marketing lead. So I touch a bunch of companies, so it depends on what your question is, but a lot.
Yeah. You have enough employees so you don't have an answer, basically, like a clear, like knee-jerk response.
Yeah.
So with RevyOps, would you want to make that your full-time thing? Or do you feel like you still need an agency so that you can really dog food RevyOps and actually understand the problem that you're solving?
It's a great question. There's another book. For anyone who's listening, I'm just grabbing a book off my bookshelf. There's a book called Never Enough by Andrew Wilkinson, and it says From Barista to Billionaire. In the book is essentially how Andrew Wilkinson in the late 2000s started a app development company and was basically one of the major app developers in terms of like building apps for people in the 2006, 7, 8, 9 period. He started as a development agency that then created their own piece of software, which then he sold. And then he used that money to go buy other app companies and then scale them. And he became kind of like a Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger type investor. And those were his heroes. And then he went on to become a billionaire as a result. But it all started with an agency. And my career has followed a similar path, although I'm not a billionaire, unfortunately, someday soon. But the scenario is the agency is relatively easy to start if you have the skill set. Selling agency services, if there's demand, like lead generation, there's massive demand, it's easy to sell. And then it gives access to people to either help them and learn their problems or to help you understand your problems as an agency. And my experience has been, if you're just getting started, especially right out of school, agencies are a great way to go because you learn a lot quickly. You get to sell, you could productize, have an offer within a day if you wanted to. I'm going to do, offer video editing services. Obviously there's more to it, but that's the basics. And then from there you get exposure. You start to talk to people, and I have a free, it's actually not a free anymore. It's $5 per month. It's a course on GTM and how to launch a business. And there's one section in the classroom section. It's in my LinkedIn profile if anyone wants to find it. It says join newsletter, and you can join the school group. There's a whole section on how to launch your offer, and it talks about using the MOM test, which is a free PDF, to come up with questions to survey your ideal customer to come up with their problems. And it's a way to basically not bias people on go-to-market and say, what are your problem and what the solution is, et cetera. So my point is agencies are massively beneficial because it gives you access to people to ask those questions, to then come up with hypotheses on problems worth solving, to then create products and solutions to solve them. So I did that the first time, and I met my future business partner as a client through that agency. And then I went on a spree of starting SaaS companies, and then got burnt out, and then started another agency. Did that for a number of years, and that's what led to RevyOps. And now I have two businesses: NextGen Sales Systems, which is the agency, RevOps, lead gen agency, and then I also have the software, which was built to solve my agency problems. So it also funds, like I really don't like raising capital. I don't like giving up control because of all the problems with people that we talked about.
Yeah.
You don't want somebody who's going to come in and steal your business. So I use all the profits from the agency to actually fund the development of RevyOps. And until RevyOps, we have about 30 agencies currently using it. We launched only a month and a half ago. And until it's generating about $5,000 a month currently. So until it gets to around $25,000, $30,000 a month, there's no way I can possibly stop taking on agency clients. But I have purposely stopped selling more agency clients. So right now we're being very selective on who we take on in addition, because I have more than enough money to, cover my entire team's costs, their salaries, pay myself a nice wage, and also cover the full development of RevyOps and some. So I don't want to overbloat myself on the agency side because it's hard fulfilling for clients and managing clients. So yeah, that's the answer to the question. Sorry for the belabored response.
No, that's good. Yeah, no, fulfilling or getting good results for clients I know is very stressful. Like I did, as I've worked on SaasyDB, it's never been like prosperous enough to cover all the bills. I've hit strides lately and gotten traction and now it's good. But like historically, I have taken on different cold email clients at times. And it is like building a startup is stressful, but like trying to have clients that you're not getting wins for is like a different kind of stress. And there are nights I had a hard time sleeping. Those nights were worse when it was client-based stress rather than my own stress, because you feel stressed out, but also bad in my experience, like trying to do outreach for people for hire. They're paying me. I'm not booking them any calls. I wasn't wise enough or mature enough in the agency experience to realize I shouldn't have taken that guy on because his offer is no good. And of course,
right.
nobody wants to get on a call with him because his offer sucks. And so I can't. Right. So I'm sure agency stuff gets less stressful with time because you learn I can sell this, but I can't sell that. But in the early days of doing agency outreach, it can just be so brutal because you're like desperate for clients almost, or not even almost. Like I was desperate for your clients. So you take on stuff and you think, oh, I'll do this and it'll be commission only, but he's offering such good commission that like, I'll do the math and in 2 months, everything will be juicy, but it's not because nobody wants to buy his thing. And so you're not getting commissions, but you have expense and you're spending 30 hours a month or whatever working on his outreach, and you're neglecting your own business because you're trying to make money selling other people's businesses. So maybe your income's about, your income ends up being about the same but you're not working on your own business. You're trying to sell somebody else's business and nobody's buying. And it's just, I don't know. I could never do that. Like the agency stuff, it's just not for me. And I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to do my own outreach and dog food my own product and just promote that way and have content to write about doing my own outreach.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it is anybody listening who's like, I'm going to start an agency because Ben just said it's a good thing to start with. I wouldn't start a lead generation agency. That's like the one thing that's like extremely difficult. If you're doing a video editing agency and you're really good at video editing, that's great. If you have like a social media, like graphic design content agency, that's relatively easy to do. As long as you're good at content creation and project management. If you're great at sales operations, that's a great little agency to start. Lead generation in particular is extremely difficult because the challenge is one, technical, which is like, how do you build lists? How do you get deliverability, especially on cold email? And then how do you actually write good copy? But there's a whole deeper part of that, which is like, how do you write good copy is a whole world. It's like getting good at writing copy for yourself could take you a year or so within your own target market because you have to do all the research and you have to understand what the keywords are. And everyone thinks copywriting is just as simple as like, oh, I'm just going to come up with any random thing. And it's like, no, it's like, you got to be speaking their language, deeply understand their problem sets, understand the viable solutions, understand what key pieces like you can poke at to get responses from. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes many, many iterations and cycles and a lot of research to do. And so every time you take on a new lead generation client, especially if they're in a different industry or space, you are essentially having to repeat that process. And so that's why, like, if you're going to do a lead generation agency, you should take the same type of client on 30 times, which is like, okay, if you're doing like creative agencies very specifically for, I don't know, video editing, Go find 30 of those and do lead generation for those. Or maybe it's recruiters, tech recruiters. Find 20 tech recruiters and do it for them, because you'll start to know the market and the offer, and that makes it scalable. The problem that happens is people get into the business and they're like, oh, I can sell to doctors and lawyers and restaurants. And all of a sudden they have 20 different offers, and it's an impossible problem to solve, at least in a good way. So I agree with you. And the problem is most people don't know that when they get into agencies. They don't understand how process oriented it has to be, how much data has to be managed, which is why RevyOps exists in the first place. So agencies can be either hell or they can be very nice. And it also depends on how much you want to scale. Right? If you want to scale to 40 clients, well, you better be a great operator and have great people. If you want to have 5 clients and you want to do it all yourself, fine. But just know you're going to be working nights and weekends, because if anything goes wrong, you're the only person who can handle it. So there's a lot to consider in agency land, and it is either going to be a hell or a blissful experience depending on how you structure it.
Yeah, I think I was going to say niching down. I feel like niching down at any business whatsoever is great, but niching down to agencies makes so much sense because your case studies are going to resonate with people within that niche. You're going to have experience and knowledge in that niche. I know a guy here who does lead gen for rehab specifically, and he knows that industry. He knows the terms, and that's just what he focuses on, and it works, but you just always have to niche down to get anywhere, I feel like, in business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's the big idea I have for RevyOps, which is RevyOps provides people with databases for each of their clients, so they can build a centralized, deduplicated list and track all the signals and activity within the contact set. But my bigger idea with RevyOps is there's a master database across all client databases that syncs all the contacts from all the clients into one master place that's deduplicated and referenceable. And the reason that's useful if you're a niche down agency is that all of a sudden you have the best list on planet Earth. Right? You have a better list than anybody else because you see the replies, you see the won deals, you see the people that have, you clean the emails. And so you know that the email in your data set has been verified once before. So I've been kind of screaming from the rooftops to all the agency owners. I'm like, guys, like, you're scraping Apify and Apollo and you're doing this over and over and over again, but you keep on re-enriching the same list, wasting clay credits. I'm like, just create your own database and become a Super Saiyan in that particular niche. But nobody's listening to me. So I'm like, I'll do it myself, So
do you find that agencies don't want to share their data with other agencies though? Even though like they scrape the same stuff and enrich the same stuff, they're still like, this is mine, and I don't want these other guys to get to my data.
So that's actually not the issue, because we don't allow for that. That's like a meta level. So like there's every client has their own database, and then there would be a database of all databases for just the agency itself. It wouldn't be shared with other agencies. It's only of their client data. But there is potentially an opportunity if people wanted to opt in to cross agency sharing. They could say, yes, I do want to share my data. And this allows it to go into a general pool to create like the most epic data set of planet Earth. That's something that could happen. That's not on our roadmap yet, but maybe it will. So I don't think that's an issue so far. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like founders always you have your written down roadmap and your announced roadmap. And then you always have like your back of the mind, pie in the sky roadmap where it's like some crazy vision that's you're just not going to get to this year or next year, but it's like
exactly
what you see it eventually becoming.
Exactly. That's totally one direction I could see it going in. In terms of RevyOps, I have personally found that like I started with my beachhead market as cold email agencies, and the issue is it's a very small market. I mean, you see the groups we're in. We're in WhatsApp groups together, and we basically see all the people that are public about being agency owners, at least lead generation, called outbound agency owners. And there's like the top guys, there's maybe like 300, 400 of them,
Yeah, you join a new group and you just recognize, oh, hey, he's here too. You recognize the same group. It's just same people. It's just like in a different party, basically.
Exactly. And so for me, I found that like from a RevyOps standpoint, it was a great way to get initial traction, and every agency brings with it 10 other clients as potential databases. We charge on a per database basis. It's $100, at least at this point, per database. In the future, it will be more than that, but $100 per database. Each database is a client. So if somebody has 10 clients, they're paying $1,000 a month. That's our current pricing structure. And so it's a good way to get exposure like that. But We charge individual clients $500, like if they're not agencies, $500 a month, up to $1,000 a month, plus consulting on top. But I don't see that as a sustainable growth path for us. It's too small of a niche. So the whole database of databases is great for agencies, but it's not great if you're not an agency. And so we're struggling internally right now of, do we pursue that particular development path, or do we go in there's two other verticals we're considering right now, and building for more generalized RevOps people and people at bigger companies who are struggling with data management. And that makes our opportunity 20 times bigger. And that kind of comes back to like, market selection and offer selection and product selection, is probably the most fundamental, important decisions an entrepreneur can make. And so there's never easy answers, to your point, as you always have those visions and what you should be doing. You and I have talked deeply about SaasyDB's pricing and who you should focus on and that kind of thing. Well, do you have any development ideas coming up?
Oh, I realize I can have the best SaaS database in the world, and that's like feasible. And that's like my guiding light now, is just to have the most exhaustive one possible. So I've been researching, because my research system I built where I can feed in lists of companies as like the seed, and then it goes through and enriches them, and it finds employees, and it does some secret sauce stuff to find the employee contacts. Like the initial seed list I feed to them of SaaS companies, I'm just looking for more esoteric lists of SaaS companies. So I've been like researching like German market SaaS. So I'm finding like list of SaaS companies on these German websites, and then luckily online translation's easy now. So I go through them and trying to just get every possible SaaS company, and just trying to build up monitoring systems. Like I found one API, and you can just watch a stream of funded companies. So I'm going to take all those funded companies and have an AI look at it and say, is this a SaaS? And if so, kick it into the research system. And it's basically, I just want to have the best data and the best filters to find, sort, and export the data. So on the development side, just trying to build more filters. Right now I have basically positive filters, but I want to have like exclusionary filters also. And just seeing, because I'm building it myself. So I know you're not developing the thing, you're RevyOps yourself, so you have a different relationship with it. But since I'm building it myself, just envisioning a data re-architecture and moving the data itself into a separate remote database, and just doing that will be such a big undertaking, but it will allow me to serve data faster and search data faster, and just have a better experience for the users. And I just want to have exhaustive data that you can just put into use as easy as possible. And that's, I want to dog food my own product more and use the SaaS company data for the screen printing company, because SaaS companies they buy swag, they buy t-shirts, they're good clients, and just, it's easy to build the kind of product like this and not really use it. So you don't see, oh, it's actually annoying to do XYZ, or it might be nicer if you filtered this way. So just trying to make it smooth and polished and as good as possible, but trying to be realistic too. There's only so much I can do. And I'm not at a point now where it makes sense to hire anybody. I don't have the funding to hire anybody because I'm bootstrapping, and I'm just trying to get to like family size where I'm profitable. And then I'll hire somebody. But it's also the debate of, what do I like doing? I like building. So it doesn't make more sense to just hire people to do outreach and let me just build and do some founder-led sales on LinkedIn and whatnot.
You know what I just thought? This is a crazy idea, is you could just white label RevyOps, because we have basically the full functionality you'd need to load your data sets into RevyOps and then give access only to your clients. And it could be white labeled. So that would take care of your entire data. This is just, I'm throwing this out there. But
yeah, but there's so much that there's the whole idea of the research system, like what it does to enrich and research the companies, and the way it's still, so I want to build in, my end goal is to have it so it will research companies every month. So the database needs to be dynamic. So like storing the data somewhere else, that's only part of it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, RevyOps does all that. So it allows you, again, we don't have to talk about this on a podcast, but for anyone listening, there's a the whole point of RevyOps is that it allows you to dynamically update your own personalized database through any tool that you prefer. So if it's your own scrapers, if it's Clay, if it's NAN, it doesn't really matter. But we have an open API, and so as long as you're writing to any data set, any database, any scraper, it automatically will enrich the contact records in live time. And then you can white label it and give it to other people as a client access. And so they won't see all of the scrapers and all the integrations and all the APIs and everything. They'll just see a clean front end with a great filter set that they can query on any parameter. They can export it, they can visualize it. And so it does all that. Nonetheless, we digress. So I think people don't really know what SaasyDB is. So what does SaasyDB do, and why did you choose that as a vertical?
So it's a SaaS company database with employee contact information not found elsewhere. Some people assume like I pull the data from Apollo or something, call it and put it into the database, but I have this bespoke research system, find the employees. So if you're looking for SaaS companies specifically, like a lot of times other databases, they don't have clear filters on it. Like within like Sales Navigator, you can't search for SaaS. So you end up searching for software development, which is not just SaaS, but agencies and whatnot. So the whole point is just to have a clear and concise SaaS only database for people that market the SaaS. And I got into it. So this is maybe my 10th startup, but it's a pivot of a pivot. 4 years ago, I had the idea for the research system, tested it out, built it, tried to launch that research system as a SaaS company so that people could put in a company name and find the employees. But the UX was clunky. It was slow. And it was just like a less common way of getting information on who works at companies. So I pivoted and I was like, what can I use my research system for? And then sell that research. So I saw CyberLeads, that cyberleads.com, and he researches recently funded companies. So I was like, I can do that. I can do that better than he does it. But it never got enough traction. It got stagnant around $500 a month with subscriptions. And it was stressful. I felt like it was stuck. It felt like Sisyphus. And I was like, I have to pivot again. So I started talking to people and saying, what kind of data are you looking for? What's hard to find? People like SaaS. People were saying SaaS data is hard to really target. And I was planning on pivoting, and Ben from Cheap Inboxes, he was actually my first customer. And it was before I was months away from being launched. And I was trying to get like more focused on it, debating if I should do that or something else. And he was like, I'll give you $500 a day to be your first customer. So he bought it. And then I was selling lifetime deals before I launched, and like to do that to validate the idea. And I sold quite a few, and it just felt like people cared about it. So then I just leaned into it. And I think SaaS companies are interesting. I think data, for whatever reason, is neat. So I like the idea of manipulating and storing data, working with data. So that's how I got into it. I had a lot of previous startups that were very unrelated. I think this is actually my first marketing related startup, truly. But I just knew after having so many failed startups, or not always failed, piddly, basically. Like I would sell them off, but they didn't really get anywhere. But I knew I had to validate better. So I validated the idea, and people seemed very interested in a SaaS specific database. So I leaned in and launched it. It's still resonating really well, and people know of it sometimes before I talk to them. And that's very interesting to me, like as a phenomenon, that my reputation precedes me sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I think this is going to become even more important. We are directionally in complete agreement about the value of niche data sets, right? Which is that your way is to go curate the data set. My way is to offer the databases to allow people to create their own unique data set. But fundamentally, it's the same idea, which is it's going to get harder and harder to curate good data. LinkedIn is cracking down, right? They're kicking off everybody who is scraping them whatsoever. Apollo is actively trying to shut down Applify. People are realizing the value of good data. And I think especially, at least in the lead generation world, data is everything. If you have good data, like a good contact with a good email, with a good cell phone record, and you have all the related context of what they did and where they were and who they talked to and what they commented on. It's like for your particular TAM, and say that's SASE or SaaS, and then of course they would want your tool, right? And so I think that the future is these niche databases, to your point, that allow you to focus on these things. And I think you chose a really hot market. SaaS is a very key one of those sub niches.
Yeah. And originally I had the idea, I'll build this research system and then I'll just duplicate it and have all these niche databases. And that's silly on my part as a business founder, because you have to focus. You can't like have 6 projects, but because I think there is definitely a lot of value in niche databases. So I was thinking like, I'll have one about breweries because I like to pitch to breweries for the screen printing company. I can have one about dispensaries, like weed stores, basically, because like people market directly to those. So like to have, because if you go narrow, you can go deep, like for the niche databases. So if you are somebody who markets to specifically insurance agents or something, like having a very high quality insurance agency focused database could do really well. And you could have it high enough quality and still have enough clients come in that you make a healthy business out of it.
Exactly. But yeah, there's such an interesting thing happening in the world right now where it's just like web scraping is both more prolific, but also becoming more guarded. It's like kind of the two major like trends that I'm seeing, which is in the past, you had the big data providers like Apollo, like ZoomInfo, like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and they were the guardians of the world, and you had to pay them $30,000 to access. But now with Clay and with all these web scraping tools, it's like pulling data is easier than ever, and it's richer than ever. You can get better data. But it's, to your point, is like there's these kind of sub niches that like will never be explored by the bigger providers. And so especially if someone like yourself can niche down and really focus on one particular vertical, you can start to extract a lot more value out of that market. And I think as you, like, even for yourself, as you start to like maybe even track enrichment signals across these data sets, and start to enrich that into the database, oh my God, that's like even better, which is like you could have product tiers where it's like, do you want the demographic data? Okay, it's this price. Do you want the ongoing signal trend for it? Well, we charge you that $500 a month type of thing. So there's a lot of cool opportunities over time with these sub niche data plays.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about tiers as far as the richness of the data, because I do want to have like technographic data. Maybe a lot of people don't care about the technographic data, but some people do. So maybe that should be an upsell. So that's interesting because I hadn't thought about that.
Well, I mean, for sure, signals is the big next thing. And for sure, people will pay an ongoing subscription for the same set of contact records if there are new behavioral signals that you are allowing them to ingest that they can't get elsewhere. Because if you are centralizing, let's say that you go and you get a subscription to, I don't know, Trigify and what other signal-based tools that capture this, or you build your own signal-based tools for that particular data set, then you are saving them a lot of subscription costs and a headache of finding that and centralizing that themselves. So I certainly think that there's an opportunity for you there if you decide to proceed down that path. It might even be a really good way for you just to like increase average order value and lifetime value as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus you mentioned Clay. I talk to guys and they say, I don't care about your leads that you have. I just want clean SaaS company lists. So it's not really a pivot, but it's like a side focus going on this quarter in which I want to build, just research and get as many companies as I can with the database. Researching the employees takes a lot longer time, but I want to have an offer. The goal was this month. We'll see what happens, but to have just a package where you get annual access to just the company information and just the idea that I have enriched SaaS company lists and that you don't get any employees, but you just find what you need, import it into Clay, and then do their waterfall enrichment or whatever in order to find the contacts, the specific companies you want. So there's a play there too. And trying to lean in and follow the trends and get more Clay friendly. Because I don't even have an API right now. It's early on enough. I haven't built that, but I know how important that is. And I know once I have that, it'll unlock a lot for the potential clients that are like more advanced basically than I have right now.
We've got a read-only API in RevyOps. I'm telling you, dude, this is like blowing my mind. I'm like, I'm having an epiphany right now on RevyOps, which is like, I could literally have a whole thing of just people that want to build sub-niche and offer it as a productized service. We are the Shopify of databases. And we become, because there's going to be a lot of people like yourself that want to offer this, not in SaaS, but in like medical.
No,
I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
No, it makes sense. I was at one of my groups I'm in. Somebody was asking about plumber data, and there doesn't seem to be a good plumber database because they don't have LinkedIn's. They don't care about that. But if you were to scrape Google Maps in America everywhere, pull all the plumber information, verify it, enrich it, and then just have a plumber specific database, you would have customers who want to just pitch to plumbers because you have agencies and maybe they pick up a client that says, I want to just pitch to plumbers. So if they can find a plumber specific database and like dentist office specific databases, if you get that granular, you might fight churn. But then because like you might have somebody come in and say, I'm just doing this one campaign for this one client and I need to reach out to 10,000 dentist office. So they're not going to stick with you that long, but you might want to adjust your business model and have it be lifetime access or something, but you can still make a hearty living selling multiple niche databases like that and just go super specific.
What's so crazy about that idea for me is that the product for this is already built. We already have this out of the box, a completely flexible schema, read, write, and read-only API access, extremely robust filter sets, the ability to automatically enrich across any open API data set, connects into Clay as well. So, I mean, it's literally for me, all I have to do is just say like, who wants to build a data set and sell it? You know, I mean, that's basically it.
This might be a good pivot for you or a good side quest. And there's guys like I don't know how to be on Twitter, but there's a guy, Frazier, on Twitter who just teaches people to make money with databases. So if you could work with him and say, I have a very flexible database architecture ready for your students to fill up and sell. Yeah, that could definitely be quite a goldmine for you, especially if it has APIs that are easy to turn on, then it could be integrated to other tools. And then it's just, you could kill it.
That's maybe this is where, you heard it first. You never know. So I know we've been on for a while, and obviously I know you got to go. Before we head out, first off, thank you very much for being on the podcast. But is there anything that you want everyone to be left with? I know that there's maybe some predictions of the future, any final thoughts that you have about what you think everyone should know.
Just a parting wisdom or life advice, rather, is just don't give up, keep going, pivot if you need to, but don't give up in business. It's worth it. Can make it happen. And it's a grand journey, even though you might lose your hair, but it's absolutely worth it, I think.
And then I know we had prediction around AI that I think was very useful, which is that your take on AI, could you just recap it?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a pushback and people will want more humans involved. Like I've seen just today, a guy announced a live chat that's focused on humans talking back to you and not AI. And another guy, a founder, announced human-based support as one of the features in his pricing plan. So I think there'll be a pushback on that. And also like the vibe coding stuff. We're just going to see more and more cybersecurity issues with that as things are vibe coded and expose extremely critical information that shouldn't be exposed within the code.
Very cool. I tend to agree with you on all those points. I think you and I have talked about this at length. I really appreciate everyone listening. Tune in to the next show of the NextGen Sales Leader Podcast. I'll see you guys then. Stuart, just to triple check to make sure everyone knows where to find you, Stuart Brent, Brent on LinkedIn, as well as what was the @ on Twitter?
Twitter is Who Works There, which is the previous pivot of SaasyDB. And if you need SaaS company data, check out SaasyDB.com. SaaS, C as in SASY, DB.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for being on the show, and we will see you later.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.